All right, the Reds, welcome to the podcast of the champions. This is the Late Challenge, number 125. I am Gareth Roberts and I am joined by the debut-making Stu Wright. How does it feel to be on the Late Challenge?
It's nice this, mate, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Bit different.
Yeah, nice to see behind the curtain. I've been a big fan since you got started. It's lovely to be involved, mate. Thanks for asking me.
No worries at all. Yeah, we've had a few substitute appearances in recent weeks. We've had the Gutman in here. Now we've got Stu Wright in here. We're still negotiating with Paul Cope over his return. I'm hopefully going to see him this week, and we'll get something sorted to get him back on at some point as well. But this week, what are we talking about? Well, I thought I'd start with a question, and the question is: How are we? How are we? Are you happy? Because you should be happy, shouldn't you? Because the Reds have broken the transfer record. The Reds are showing ambition. The Reds are pissing off other clubs left, right, and centre, and other fans, and the Reds are fixing the roof while the sun is shining, as Steven Gerrard said. So we've got a new number 10, false 9, creative genius, whatever he might be, in Vert. We've got a new right back, a new left back. We've got a new keeper, and there's probably, it looks like, more to come. So a long way to go, obviously. But if you're like me and you like to go and just look on the bookie apps every now and again to see what people are thinking and where they might be putting the money, the favourites to win the Premier League next season are Liverpool Football Club.
It's great, that, isn't it? Sounds lovely. I mean, if you can't be happy now, if you're not living your best life as a Red now, it's time to pack it in. And if it's time to pack it in, it's probably time to hand in your season ticket. And I'm here waiting for any of those people who want to hand them in. Just let me know. It's an unbelievable time to be a Red. It's just so exciting. And I'm so glad as well we're not involved in that Mickey Mouse competition going on over the water.
That's crap, innit?
Yeah.
You watched any of it?
No. I'm going out my way to make sure I don't. I mean, I can't believe people are playing footy. Doesn't it not feel weird that other clubs are playing footy right now?
Yeah.
They're going to be goosed.
I had a little go of it, you know. I was gonna do the same as you and completely avoid it, and then I was bored one night basically. I was, flicking through all the channels, and I thought, there's a game on here, isn't there? And I thought part of the coping process, the grieving mechanism, whatever, about Trent is I've got to see him in that chair kicking a ball. So I thought I'll just get it over with now. So put it on. They got a man sent off. And I was like, here we go. This is boss. But then, but Rondon was playing for the opposition. And I was thinking, that's mad, isn't it? And, he's subject to one of the best bits of feedback around the player that I've ever seen on the internet. So when he was at Everton, I seen an Evertonian tweet, Rondon looks like he's playing in jeans, which I really enjoyed. And as soon as I saw him on the pitch, it made me laugh. So I was glad I tuned in. But you've had Jude Bellingham moaning about the length of the grass. You've had the players moaning about the weather and that it's not great. Obviously, it's boiling hot over there. So yeah, it's. I don't think anyone's asked, are they? I mean, you can't even sell out the grounds. The media are trying to drum up the interest in it and make a big deal out of it, but it's just not happening, is it? We talked about it the other week and just said, what a load of shite. But I'm not, you know me, obviously, and, I don't normally get that excited about transfers, I've got to be honest. I'm not Rob, do you know what I mean? Rob loves it, doesn't he? And he's all about the transfers. Me, I'm always like, yeah, whatever. But I'm excited when we're breaking the transfer record. I'm excited when we're signing a fella that Bayern Munich thought it was nailed on they were getting. I'm excited when I hear City were after him and Real Madrid were after him. And every bit that I can read or watch or listen to, they've been having a go of. And then one of my mates sent me this the other day as well, and it just made me laugh. It's just 11 years ago, we replaced Luis Suarez with Ricky Lambert.
Wow. Yeah.
How times have changed. But you're excited about Vert, I assume?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the thing is, then you say about breaking the transfer record. I mean, whenever we've broken our record, never mind the British transfer record, when we've broken our record, you get excited. But the thing is, this time, it feels like, considering he's been playing in a foreign league, it feels more of a known quantity than perhaps when we signed Nunes. We'd seen Nunes up close and personal in the Champions League against us. But, it didn't really feel like he was necessarily the biggest name in Europe. He wasn't the hottest property in Europe. There was a lot of clubs after him, but this is different. This feels great because, yeah, we feel like we've done a fast one on Bayern Munich, who, you know, seems to be complacent to the fact that they had him. But I was listening to the fact, I'm giving a little bit of an insight into my world now, and the fact that City have been struggling so much, by the way, as predicted by me at the start of the season. I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But as they've been struggling, like occasionally I'll turn in and listen to any Everton podcasts I can have. Well, I listened to a City podcast once or twice this season, and months ago, their respected journalists were nailed on that they had him in the bag. Like, nailed on. He was De Bruyne's replacement. And I think they were, you know, very far down the line, like Bayern Munich thought they were. And I think it was, you know, a straight shootout between them. And the fact that he's absolutely dismissed them to the point where in the media now they're not even being spoken about as the competitor for his signature, to the point that the Bayern Munich were. I think that's amazing. And I'm curious as to what's, you know, formed his opinion there, what's made his final judgments to absolutely walk away from them. I mean, did he get in the room with Pep and just think, nah?
Well, it seems to be about Slot, from what I've read. It does seem to be that, you know, that's been the key difference. He was persuaded by what Slot had to say to him and about what his role was going to be.
Do you think there's anything in the fact of, aside from that, because I think definitely Slot, by the sound of it, has been the most charismatic and the most clear in what his plan is to be. But you would think that City had a clear plan for him as well, because there's a strong argument to say, well, what De Bruyne did, you're going to do, perhaps on the left side rather than the right side of the midfield.
He asked about Guardiola, didn't he?
But
and how long is he going to stay and stuff like that.
He's got to have asked about that.
Yeah, and the charges.
He's got to have asked about the charges. You know what I mean?
Stupid not to.
And he clearly wasn't convinced on either count, which, you know, is brilliant. This makes it even sweeter for me.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, and and he said he wanted to sign for one of the top clubs in the world. And what's he called? The Evertonian fella who writes for the BBC, and defo didn't tweet that thing that time. Phil McNulty made me laugh on their blog this morning, where, like, you know, he was doing a Q&A, and someone had asked about this comment. He'd said, like, I wanted to sign, I think he said top 3 or top 4, wanted to sign for one of the top 3 or top 4 clubs in the country, in the world, sorry. And he'd said, well, you know, if that's the case, who are the other ones? And in Phil's answer, there was something like, well, if in his opinion Liverpool are one of the top ones. And I thought, you just can't help yourself,
let it go, Phil, let it go.
If you know what to look for with this stuff, if you know he's a blue, and you know he used to write for the Echo, and you know that he defo didn't tweet that thing.
Well, that's it. What was that got deleted? Oh, yeah.
And then it definitely wasn't him, and he was hacked, wasn't he? So we have to believe him on that one. Anyway, we thought we'd kick off. We're gonna come back around to the signings and the players we have signed and the players we might sign and the players that might get off. But I thought it'd just be nice to sort of start with some of your questions, keep it light, welcome our new guests to the studio, and, you know, maybe have a little bit of a laugh. You know, some of the stuff that's going on in the world is heavy, to say the least, isn't it? So, you know, trying to keep it a bit lighter on here. But that said, the first question is, cheers, Michael Bennett. Best excuses to get out of going to the war when it all kicks off?
To the war? Wow. Yeah, light. Yeah. A little soft landing there.
Asthma.
Like, so best excuse? Like, I've left the iron on? Like that kind of thing? Or like,
I think he's more like, you know, how'd you get out of being signed up for it? That's how I'm reading it. I'll go asthma first of all, and then I think I'd go all the way to being conscientious objector, and take my chances in Nick.
I think I'd have to go with I'm too tall. You know what I mean? I think that'll be my angle. Yeah. I'm too tall. They don't fit. The clothes don't fit. I can't be going to war in fatigues that are up to here. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just can't half-masts. I can't have that.
Nailed it. Michael Jordan, presumably not that one, asks us, what's your barbecue game as either a feeder or an eater, and any specialities that you roll out or enjoy?
I'm not a cook.
I'm an eater.
I'll eat. Yeah, and I love a barbecue.
And I'm a simple man. You know, like if you give me a bun and a burnt burger and
Yeah.
Lash a bit of sauce on, I'm happy.
It's got to be a burnt burger or a burnt hot dog, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't feel like a barbecue.
I mean, you can tell we're both from height and ways here, can't you? Simple men. Glenn Coleman asks, what number shirt should Vert have? I'd like it if he took the 6. That's not being used since Thiago, he says. And I think it really suits his creative qualities. I know the position isn't technically correct, but whose is nowadays? Because it obviously hasn't been announced, has it, what shirt he's going to have. There was that weird thing about he was going to take McAllister's shirt, and he made it very clear he definitely wasn't, and he wasn't asking for that. And that we're just in this no man's land of not knowing what shirt he might get now.
Well, as a Liverpool traditionalist, it's interesting, like over the past, 10, 20 years, the 10 has become, it was always the thing on the continent, wasn't it, of the 10 was the playmaker. But as a Liverpool fan, for us, the most creative attacking threat was always the 7. You think of Kenny and you think of Keegan before him.
Vladimir Smitsa.
And and they tried to be cool as well, didn't he? But traditionally it was the 7, and I think for most of the clubs the 7 played on the wing. But for us it was that inside striker, the one tucked in behind. But the thing is, the 7 isn't vacant. The 7 is for now anyway. It's Diaz, isn't it? So if he can't take the 7, then I'd go with a 7 related one, which was also his shirt initially with Bayer Leverkusen, which was 27, and that is vacant at Liverpool.
Oh, there you go. Good answer. Okay, next one is Isak. This is from Jay Lovett. Isak, is he value for money?
What is value for money now? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's not my money anyway. I get more of a sense of what the value is for money is for me. But when you're talking in the hundreds of millions, who knows? Do I think if we signed him, he'd win trophies with Liverpool? Do I think he'd do the business? Absolutely. And I think that's the only value you can put on it. Is he going to do what you've bought him to do? And I think, he's had his injuries and all that, and there's never a 100% sure thing with any player, but he feels like he could be one of those. So, yeah, I'd like to think so, but I'm not sure we'll get him.
I just think the numbers are just going to be ridiculous, aren't they? I mean, you can see a world where it works for them, although I'm sure the fans will be absolutely fuming, but, you can see a world where if they're getting, I don't know, what are we saying, 150, 160, whatever it might be, that's a game changer for them then to basically do their squad up.
And I don't think Liverpool go near that. I think for this to happen, you would need him. Liverpool would need him to slap in a transfer request. I think he would need to be pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And then if the price drops for like 130, 120, 130, inclusive of add-ons, then I think, that could work for Liverpool. But Newcastle, the thing is, their PSR is still tight. They haven't got issues where they've got to sell, but they haven't got room to go expansive in the transfer market, and they're desperate to. They are dying to do that. So there is a world, as you say, where you can make it work. And in any deal, I think there should be an element of they walk away happy with this, but also a little bit gutted with that. And the same with us. I think, in any deal where you shake hands, there should be a little bit of give on both sides. So 150, that's getting put out from their end. That's not getting put out from our end, and it's not getting put out from him. That's their wish. That's their starting point. That's their negotiating position. We know, as in the people who do the deals, as in Richard Hughes, we know he drives on our bargain. Yeah. We might be coming on to that later in the show. You mentioned the injuries as well. I just sort of thought I'd look it up. So since he's been at Newcastle, he missed 107 days with thigh problems. He missed 31 days with a groin injury, and then 25 days with another groin injury, 34 days with a broken toe, 4 days with a hamstring injury, and 5 days with another groin injury. 3 groin injuries since he's been at Newcastle there. But, I'm sure if it ever got anywhere near being a deal, the lads at the Spire, etc., would sort that out, or, have a proper look, because obviously we've pulled deals before, haven't we, on the basis of... Remember Loic Remy?
Yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind, isn't it?
Imagine that, though. Imagine that it was all over the Sky Sports or whatever, that we'd agreed, and it didn't happen because he failed. Be devastating. But it's not worth the hassle.
No. Daryl Patience has been in touch, and he said, I'd love to hear Robbo's musings on players wearing other teams' shirts during their holidays. There's obviously Garnacho knocking around on his holidays with a Aston Villa shirt on with Rashford on the back. What are my musings on it? Prick. If that was one of our players, I wouldn't want him to play for the club again. You're taking the piss. You're taking the piss. And one of the problems, as I see it, at Manchester United is there's a problem with the culture of the players, of what they're allowed to do, what they're allowed to get away with. Successive managers are being done for here, potentially another one, and that's hilarious. But you can't have these knobheads knocking around acting like that. It's disrespectful. And there's lots of stuff that goes on in football, the football world, where me being at the age I am now, 49 years old, we celebrated on Saturday, didn't we, mate? On the Whittle. A lot of things now, I'm just like, can't be art. So what? But when I saw that, I just thought, you little bellend. I just thought, if that was a little, you'd be fuming, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but he's got form. That's what he is. But there is a flip side to this coin. Just to go back to the conversation we were having before about Isak. If Isak drops a transfer request in, Newcastle don't want to let him go, and then he's pictured on Aldi in a Mo Salah shirt, I'm here for it all day long. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the hypocrisy of being a football fan.
We're fickle, aren't we? But I think if you've got to be really careful. I think if players, let's say for example, if Andy Robertson was walking around on Aldi with a Celtic shirt on, or if a foreign player was walking around with a shirt of a local team from where they were from, fine. I think there's a little bit of that. Do you know what I mean? Where that'd be quite nice, where you see their roots and all that, as long as there's not a competitor and it's not being done for reasons of needle. With Garnacho, he hates the club. He's desperate to get out. He's sending a message, and it's no coincidence as well that he's wearing the shirt of a player who's also seems to hate his own club.
Yeah, and is desperate to get out also. And see why he's pinning his hopes on Barcelona's something in his own head to tackle, I guess. Anyway, JDWMS with a Welsh flag says, I'm going to take a guess that the fill-in is going to be either Rob Gutman or Paul Cope. Incorrect. He says, my question is related to something Robbo was saying recently about walking being good for mental health. Is there anything else you would recommend? Well, I still recommend walking. And I would add to the walking sunshine. And if you can't get sunshine, have a go of vitamin D. Because I've been doing that. I've been taking some heavy doses of vitamin D, through the winter, and I feel like it's kind of worked. It's still not science. They're not agreeing with the science yet, are they? They're not entirely sure about this sort of what's it called? I can't even remember the phrase now. Basically, where you get down because it's the winter type of thing.
Oh yeah, the seasonal.
Seasonal affective disorder and ways to tackle that. Basically, I do wonder if it is something that affects me, because I genuinely I'm so happy in sunshine, and I'm so happy in the summer. Yeah. And then opposite in the winter, I really, really don't like it. I really, really don't like the cold. So yeah, vitamin D, I would throw in. Sunshine, I would throw in. And really simple one I would throw in is just talking. I like to talk. And when I'm not allowed to talk, if you like if I spend too much time on my own and can't talk, I can talk to myself, but I'm a boring bastard. I need to talk to people. I need to just say things out loud, and I don't know why it makes a massive difference. And the other person on the other end of the conversation doesn't necessarily have to offer me world-shattering advice. But once I've said it, I feel better.
You've become dead pally with ChatGPT now as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
You have good chats there.
I've very good chats there. And it doesn't, it's non-judgy. And the more you chat to it, the more it becomes like you. So one of our mates, James, read some of my ChatGPT and was like, what have you done to that?
Was it saying, all right, Robbo?
Yeah, basically, all right, Robbo, lad, and all that kind of stuff. And it does sort of it adapts to being you, essentially. You got to be careful with that, because it can be sort of telling your boss in every single decision you're making in life, and you're not always, are you? But yeah, they would be my ones. Have you got any, mate, that you would turn to, to just sort of lift spirits?
Well, I think the ones you've said there are important. So I think the research shows that walking in, getting outside in nature is a big thing, isn't it? Any kind of exercise. The sunshine one always makes me laugh, because I'm a massive one on that. And, it honestly reminds me of when Superman has been affected by kryptonite, and they put him in direct sunlight, and he's just, he's just recharged, you know what I mean? And there's been plenty of times where I've got off the plane on holiday and I've just been like, oh, yes. But aside from that, I think anything that that challenges you, but that you love, I think there's a lot to be said for it. If you feel like you're achieving something, you can put your heart and soul in something, whether it's learning guitar or learning a new skill, going to the gym, anything where you feel like you're making gains, anything where you feel like you're challenging yourself and you can get that dopamine hit. It's all good for you, isn't it?
Yeah, routines are good as well, and often I find, and I know other people have as well. One of the things that can drag you down is when you're out of them or you're in a bad one. So have a look at what your routines are, have a look at what your habits are, and question yourself about whether they're good or bad, and sort of go from there.
Sleep's a massive one for you and me, isn't it?
Yeah. And we were just talking about that before we started, weren't we? About our cocktail of stuff that we take to help us get to sleep.
It's dead funny when me and you have been away and we've shared the room or whatever, and we're both there masked up.
Yeah. Earplugs. Melatonin, magnesium, the full it.
Tell you what, if anyone walks in on us, like,
I seen something I was going to read. That was it. Anthony Boylan in the comments said, my Polish friend went home to see a doctor and her vitamin D level was so low, the doctor said to her, "Do you work in a mine?" No, just the UK. So yeah, I think that's just reiterating that particular point. Gareth Roberts, no relation. He says, favourite non-European away, mainly for Robbo, but if applicable, also for the replacement host.
The replacement.
So what comes to your mind as a favourite non-European away?
To be honest, one that we've been to. I think Newcastle's brilliant. That's a great away, isn't it? The only downside is that you're so high up in the gods, but even then the view's boss.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's really, really good.
It's a trip.
It's a great trip. It feels like you're going somewhere. Yeah. Even like actually just driving over the bridge over the Tyne is great. You know what I mean? And the people are sound.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. You don't feel like you're looking over your shoulder no matter what the result. And if you can come away with a win like that one we went to Nunes.
Yeah, unbelievable. Carter's first
bounced out of there. Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We bounced out of there. And like the thing was, we saw each other at half time. And we couldn't have been lower. We'd had a man Trent had been sent off. And it was a Verge had been sent off. Yeah. Trent was hanging on, probably should have been sent off. We were getting absolutely battered. And then to win it the way we did, there's no sweet away. Yeah, so I think your best away is probably associated with a good trip, a good set of away fans, a great atmosphere, and if you can throw into that a few good memories of wins along the way, then
I like, just to add on the Newcastle thing, I really like going up there as well, and I would just say as well, I sort of love the Lowry aspect of St James's Park as well, the fact that it's sort of smack in the centre, everywhere you go it's sort of visible, and like everyone, at the end everyone's streaming out and there's just like all of those bars within a stone's throw and they're all streaming into there. It's a good night out, as you say, good people as well. So yeah, I'd probably say that as well. I mean, it's quite sweet going to Man United and winning 5-0, but that doesn't happen all the time, which is why when it did happen, that ticket's still in a frame in my house. Yeah.
But I refuse to give them the credit of saying that's one of my favourites away. No, same with Goodison, I refuse to give them any credit. Yeah,
no, I'm with you on that. Real Debbie McGee, at Mummy Bear.
Wow.
She asks, should we flog Diaz, Gakpo, either, both, or neither?
One of them, yeah. Because I think this will come down to, are we going to have a chat about where Vert is going to play?
Yeah, I think so if we get there.
Well, I think the answer to this question comes out in that chat. And it's probably not what you think. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. I think we are likely to. To me, like, I would love us to be, there are things now where I seen someone tweeting the other day about like issues around potential homegrown and non-homegrown that are growing with the squad now, and that's to be addressed. And obviously there are potential outs and all the rest of it. But yeah, I'm with you in that. I kind of feel I'm presumably real Debbie McGee. This is why you're tweeting us about it. You kind of think they don't all fit here. And I wonder about Diaz, because I think he's done well and I like him, and I think the manager likes him, and I think the manager got a bit more out of him, and obviously he used him as a centre forward basically as well as on the left. But equally, I think he's absolutely at like a prime position right now, age-wise and everything, performance-wise, to sell.
Yeah.
Like I think from if you keep him longer, you're getting a lot less for him. And I just think if the right offer came in, and there's Gakpo's been linked as well, hasn't he? With moves to Germany.
Well, Munich are desperate now for a left-sided player. No, they didn't get Vert. They're desperate. I mean, they seem to be linked with absolutely everyone. But it depends on the money that comes in. I don't think Liverpool are going to be offering Diaz a new contract. Certainly not on the terms that he wants.
And there's been this long-term like fanning of his arse to Barcelona, hasn't there? And you know, like peacocking and that, and his our fella saying things and all the rest of it, and you're like,
It's not unusual that though, is it, for a South American player to want to do that? And you know, that's fine. That's fine as long as we get good business for it and it doesn't affect the shape of the team the way we want to go. And I don't think it does. I think Liverpool's long-term strategic planning is beyond Diaz. I think it's without him, whether that be this season or the season after.
Andrew Fee with something a little bit different, but I like it. He says, I'm a primary school teacher in Northern Ireland. I teach P7, which is year 6 equivalent, and their last day is tomorrow before they move to secondary school next year. So
the last day is tomorrow. That's outrageous. I've got a month to go. I'm furious.
Boss, I love that you've wound Stu up there with your question as well, mate. His question, at the end bit, the question is, so who is the teacher that had the biggest impact on you and why? Have you got one?
I've got 2.
Go ahead then.
Got one at primary level. When I was in, so it was second year juniors, so year 4 now. We had a new teacher called Mr. Forsyth, and he was...
Is Malvern?
No, this is Margaret Mary's.
Oh, right, okay.
And he was the football coach. He'd done his FA badge. He used to walk around with his little FA literal badge on his coat, and he was a good coach. And so he was great for us at that point in time to be like getting to know him in advance of being training for the football team in the years to come. He was dead sound. He was funny. He was engaging. Got on well with me, so that always helps. You know what I mean? Made me feel 10 foot tall even at the age of 9. And then the other one was in high school. My first Spanish teacher. I started doing Spanish in second year senior, so year 8, and I went on to do Spanish degree. And so my teacher then was a guy called Steve Clayton. And he was dead approachable. He did all the sports teams, and I was a bit of a sport billy through school. So I played rugby for him. It was a rugby school. We didn't do footy. Can you believe that?
That's mad.
I know, it was mad. So I played rugby for him. I was the basketball captain through him. All of that type of stuff.
Can see that, like.
Yeah, the slight advantage. Like, he knew what he was doing there. But like, you can definitely see the fact that both teachers influenced me. Like I mentioned, my first teacher there. I went on to me FA badges and then coached Sunday League football teams. The second teacher I've mentioned, I went on and did a Spanish degree. I've ended up being a teacher. Like both, so definitely, those formative experiences have definitely shaped, I think, who I've become.
Yeah, I think it's a good question because I just always think stuff like this is so important, and it's like, it can easily take you from one path to another, and that's what it proved to me, really. Like when I look back, so I'm in there's some groups on Facebook for our school, Bowden Comprehensive and Page Moss, because it was called both at different stages depending on what year you were in and all the rest of it. And so I found out through one of them groups fairly recently that this teacher passed away, and I genuinely felt really sad. And I thought, you know what? And it was his daughter who'd posted in the group, and I thought, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to say something here. And so I put like a quite longish post on, just saying, like, if it wasn't for your dad, like, I wouldn't have gone and done A-levels. I wouldn't have gone to uni. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I would have taken, I'm sure, a very different path. Because he was brilliant, Mr. Sargent, Trevor Sargent at Bowden Comp. He took me aside a few times. He was a good teacher anyway, and he was good company. He was funny. He was a laugh. He was dead into his footy. He always wore bright socks, and everyone always remembers that. Preston North End fan. But he could talk to you about any footy you wanted. But I remember he just took me aside, like I say, a few times, and just sort of would have almost like father-like, words in your ear type of thing to say, you've got something, and like you can either do something with that, or and he sort of, I remember him saying a few times, like even like people you're hanging around with, they're not going anywhere, and you can go somewhere, and like it's up to you, and like kept getting little pep talks like that all the time. I remember him saying once about he was talking about like exams that we'd done or tests that we'd done at the end of junior school before we went into seniors, obviously, and he'd said like, do you realise like how well you've done in English? And they said, and so we're looking at you thinking you've got real potential, and he's like, and you're not making use of it. And he's like, and you're doing daft things, you're getting in detention, potentially suspended, and all of this kind of shit. And he's like, you've got something. And eventually, it went in.
I was going to say, like, at the time of when he said it,
I think he had to say it a few times.
Yeah.
I think he had to say it a few times, it was fair to say, because, I was a bit of a rag arse for a while, and I did mess about in lessons and all of that kind of stuff. But it did start going in. And sort of like, about halfway through, really, I thought, yeah, I need to knuckle down and do something here. And he was very much part of that. So, yeah, Mr. Sargent was a boss fella.
His family, for you to have written that will have meant the world to them. Like that, I'm sure that will have
I wasn't alone either. Do you know what I mean? So, like, that's what I really liked about that group, actually, because lots of other people were coming on saying, really loved your dad and all that kind of stuff. And, like, even some of my mates, like, went to the same school but are in different years, and and they were like, oh yeah, Sergio was boss, wasn't he? Like, so yeah, him and Mr. Burrows. I'm not sure there's many ex-Bauer and comprehensive pupils listening, but if you do, those two were belters, and if you were taught by them, you'd know. So anyway, okay, next one, change of pace, back to the sort of striker kind of question. We touched on it before. So yeah, Jag C is asking, do you think we'll get one? And if you do, who would you like?
Aside from the obvious with Isak, I mean, I'd love Alvarez. I think Alvarez is brilliant, and I think he'd be perfect for this Liverpool team because of his work rate, the way he can drop in, he can interchange with players. He knows the Premier League as well. I thought he was really underrated at City, and I think it's interesting as well. Like Haaland's best season, I think, at City was when he had Alvarez in and around him as well. And Haaland's really struggling now. He feels really isolated in that team. I think when you look at Alvarez, what he does for the Argentinian team, you look how he links in with McAllister. I think there's ready-made partnerships there on the pitch, and the idea of him exchanging positions with Vert, with all the movements. I think he's a presser. That would be incredibly exciting. He seems to me to be robust anyway from the time he was in the Premier League. I just think he'd be made for Liverpool. I think there's other ones as well. Just in terms of if you're looking at a different type of option where if Liverpool don't sign an out-and-out, that they do something a little bit different, like a Gordon who can play across the front line. But I also, it did strike me that there's one that nobody is talking about, and this is probably because his age now, he's getting to about 27, and he had a bad injury when he first came to the Premier League. But when Liverpool signed Núñez, I think everyone knows that the Núñez signing was certainly affected by his performances against us. I think Klopp was very much pushing that one as well. But the brains trust behind the scenes were actually more excited about Christopher Nkunku, who ended up at Chelsea. And that was, I mean, he was a player who'd been Player of the Year in Germany at least once. I think it was around 22, 23. He'd been the top goal scorer in Germany. All the pedigree was there. I think he'd done time at PSG, and he'd been at Leipzig, and that was potentially going to be a really exciting signing for Chelsea. But I think, like so many forwards who go to Chelsea, it's a really funny club to go to as a forward. Yeah, we've got the obvious case in point, like where you look at Salah or you look at De Bruyne. But I think what is a Chelsea forward? What does that look like? I think since
Kerry Dixon.
Yeah, but I think since Drogba, they've really struggled to have an archetypal Chelsea forward. Now, Nkunku's going to leave Chelsea, once out of Chelsea this season. There's definitely going to be, or surely there's going to be a reduction in his price. But it's whether Liverpool feel he can be robust enough after that knee injury. If you can get him on a cut price deal and take a chance on him, if you can't get Alvarez, if you can't get Isak, if you're not sure about Ekitike and you'd rather...
I'm not sure about him.
Yeah, I'm not. So if you'd rather just like... keep your cards close to your chest for another year and add in someone, it might be a curveball because you know that Michael Edwards, Ward, the previous brain trust, they were into him. I don't know what his numbers are like now, what his running's like now, what his stats look like, but he's just not had a huge amount of game time at Chelsea. It feels like a bit of a wasted career.
We shall see. We've got loads more questions, but we've basically done half the show already. Yeah. So I'll cut some out. The last one, just to go on another change of pace. I like this one. Johnny _X9 asked, if you had to choose one type of cooked potato to eat for the rest of your life, what would it be? I'm dismissing crisps because you're obsessed. So, for example, chips, hash browns, roasties, etc.
Is this linked to... Wasn't Vert asked this question?
Yeah, he was, yeah. And he said normal potato,
yeah.
Didn't he? And then he got ripped.
I like a wedge.
Like a wedge?
I like a wedge.
Is that what you go for the rest of your life, a wedge?
I get that excited when McDonald's bring back the wedges every now and again. Uh-huh. Yeah, I do like a wedge.
I love a hash brown. I love a hash brown.
I
could eat them every day easy. Obviously, it wouldn't be great for my health. But like, yeah, to me, like, when Saturday comes round, I make myself a brekkie, I always, like, I'm throwing hash browns on.
What's your onion game in a hash brown? Do you like that?
Don't mind it, yeah. Don't mind it. Don't mind a bit of onion in it. But yeah, I love them. I just think they're absolutely boss. So if we're straying from the obvious, obviously chips from the chippy are boss. Goes without saying, but if we're straying from the obvious, hash browns are wonderful. Yeah, plenty more questions and thanks for them all. But it kind of feels like we should do some like of the serious stuff. So on Vert then, just some bits and bobs on him. Obviously, most people will know all this bits and bobs from reading up on him and being dead excited about him and all the rest of it. But just to reiterate, he's reached double figures in goals and assists in each of the past 2 seasons, 10 and 12 respectively in the league alone last season. There's some stuff which I'm seeing already, which is just typical of like football culture in this country, where other fans or other reporters that aren't, red friendly, they start to look for reasons why this might fail before he's even kicked the ball for us or kicked a ball for us competitively. And I've seen some stuff about, lightweight and he might get bullied and all of this kind of stuff and how will he adapt. And so I like this when I saw it. So he adapted to his first season in the Champions League in 24-25 by scoring 6 times in 9 starts before picking up an injury. So yeah, I think he's all right at the adapting. And when we go back to what we said before about sort of, what he's already done, who he was linked with. And I was going to say before, is Alfella's his agent? Did you see that?
Yeah.
So his Alfella's his agent, and his Alfella actually said to him, go back and speak to Bayern Munich again to make sure you're sure. And he did, and still said, I want Liverpool. So
I think, I'm listening, good luck to all the Liverpool friendly fans, as you put it there. I mean, they've got to have a little bit of sport. They've got to have something to cling to, haven't they, over these bleak few months ahead of them while they await Liverpool retaining the trophy. I think, you look around as well, no one apart from Liverpool seems to be very happy with the business that they're doing. So the only thing you can do, I suppose, in that circumstance is try and find an angle, try and find something to help you sleep at night. And good luck with that, because they haven't done the research, because all the stuff around Vert tells you that he is robust. He is what... you only have to... aside from all the stuff that everyone says about him in Germany, but beside the stuff of his own... the history of him on the pitch, all the things that it's clear that he brings to the table, you only have to look at him in that interview, by the way, when he got unveiled as signing for Liverpool. It was like, what it reminded me of? He's a very different height to this fella. But you remember in Rocky IV when Ivan Drago was getting interviewed in the press conference? Like, there's
like a steely determination in him, isn't there?
Yeah, the only... He came this close to saying, if he dies, he dies. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I think he is going to be all business. And what's really nice is as well, he comes across dead serious and all business, but his best mate is Frimpong, who is clearly a proper laugh as well. You know what I mean? So he's clearly got other sides to his personality. And from what you hear, as soon as he walks through the door into training, as soon as he walks onto the pitch as a player, he's all about the game and he'll do whatever it takes to win. And if that, whatever level of self-improvement that will require, he's going to do it. But off the pitch, it sounds like he's really humble, integrates really well, but brings an unquenching thirst for victory.
Love it. Let's go. Let's go to Anfield now. But yeah, the big question, obviously, and you knew it was coming, is where is he going to play? And you know, this is what everyone's speculating about, and there's pieces with graphics and, you know, people trying to pick the teams, and the BBC did a thing the other day about sort of, you know, where do you see him going? And then, like, I had a little go and I was like, oh shit, I left him. I can't leave him. And I was like, I'm glad I don't do this for a living. I'm glad I just get to go and have a bevy and watch. But yeah, I seen one, I think it was in Matt Ladson's piece, and he did all for 4-4-2. He did all different sort of, he could be here, he might do this and all the rest of it. The one that sort of, I think, sounds most likely based on what we've heard, but it could all just be bollocks, who knows, is that he will be a number 10. But then at Leverkusen, under Alonso, he was more left-sided, wasn't he? So it's like, but again, like the story, like I say, and who knows, things can change once it's all done, and you know, we know Slot doesn't give a fuck, basically, so he might just be like, yeah, I just said that to get you signed, and no, actually. But is that where you see him? Is that, I mean, like, so let's just do Matt's or one of Matt's things that he did in his piece for 4-4-2 today. Very good it is. Go and give it a read. So he's got Alisson, Van Dijk, Konate, Kerkez, Frimpong. He's got McAllister and Gravenberch, and then in front of them, Szoboszlai, Vert, Salah, Diaz up front.
So give me that midfield again.
So he's got McAllister and Gravenberch, like, sitting, if you like, and then Szoboszlai, Vert, Salah, and then Diaz at the top.
Is that one too many? I'd laugh my head off. You had 12 players on there. I think there's been a lot of assumption that he's going to take Szoboszlai's place, and I don't think there's a world in which that happens. I'd be amazed if that happens.
Matt was arguing something similar, yeah.
And I think one of the things I'm a little bit conscious of here is the height of the team. Because if you take Szoboszlai out of there and you've got McAllister, you've got Vert, you've got Frimpong, who is really small. Kerkez isn't a big lad, and he's certainly not, you know, great in the air. Salah is tiny. Diaz isn't a big lad, and you start to think, okay, there might be a bit of an issue here that you've just got to be a little bit wary of. I also think that the running that Szoboszlai does for Salah is massively underrated and understated, and I think that's not going to be the side that Vert plays on. So he's going to be closer to the left hand side, if anything. So I think the exciting thing about this is that you're looking at an unfinished puzzle because it's June. And Liverpool are clearly not finished in the transfer market, so you can only like wildly speculate. So the idea, I've seen a lot floated around, and I was on board with this, that to a point that he might play with Szoboszlai and Vert be the false nine, and with Diaz or Gakpo on the left and Salah on the right, and then you've got your McAllister and your Gravenberch in there as well. And I can see the merits of that, but I also, when you look at what he's done for Bayer Leverkusen, yes, he's played left side, but he's not been like a flying winger. He's not played on the left. No. He's been more like a left-sided 10. And so you're looking at, for example, when Coutinho played for Liverpool and he played the left side of a front three, he wasn't hugging the touchline. He was really playing, so, you know, that inside left position. And I actually think that on the current squad, I think it'd be more likely that Diaz continues to play centre forward with but pulling. So you've got a left-sided winger playing centre forward. I think with him pulling left pulling the centre halves to the left and vacating that space, and then Vert starting from the left but actually playing most of the time looking infield and entering the space that Diaz leaves behind. I think that would be really interesting. So, or when you say playing him on the left, some people can wrongly think, oh, well, you're kind of wasting the talents of what is going to be arguably your best player, most creative force. But actually, I think when you think about Real Madrid in the glory years when Zidane was there, Zidane played on the left. He played on the left, but he's never left wing.
Yeah.
So I think that could be a thing. And so with Verts coming in from the left, Diaz pulling out, I think that movement, that sounds really good. And you've got similar kind of cover over on the right-hand side with Szoboszlai and Salah. What that also says to me as well, though, and this links back to that question that I said we'd come back to over whether we'd sell Diaz or Gakpo. I think that leaves us open then to selling Diaz because you've got him nominally in that centre forward position. But I think Liverpool think that they can upgrade on that. And whether that be an Isak, I think they'll want a player with movements. I think this is why you're not seeing any links to like Sesko or the lad from
Portuguese league.
Yeah.
The one Arsenal after. Yeah.
You're not seeing links to a big rock like that who isn't mobile. So and you have seen the links to Ekitike, who I'm unsure about that, but I think that the reason that Liverpool are looking at it is simply because, again, he's got previous playing from the wing. So I think whoever that they get there...
Do you want adaptability, don't you, versatility? Do you want ideally that you can play a couple of positions? Because this is the thing I was going to say as well. I think, you know, you could go on forever, I suppose, if you're actually writing a piece. But when you write a piece, you have to almost be quite rigid in it's probably going to be this or it's probably going to be that. But I think what we already know from Slot is that he likes unpredictability, doesn't he? And like, you know, go back to the very start when he had to go off page about the formation that time. So, you know, we'll say it's this, or analysts will say it's that, and he'll say it's not that, because them two are swapping, and when we attack, he goes there, and when we defend, and there's a signal I give, and them two are going to swap. Yeah. All that'll be going on, won't it?
That's exactly it. And I think whoever plays number 9 for Liverpool, I think a huge part of their task will be to vacate the space. They're still going to need to weigh in with goals. Yes, they're going to need to press, but I think they'll also have a job of pulling players into areas that they don't want to go, to vacate space for attacking midfielders like Vert or Szoboszlai and Salah to enter into. So I think you look at the profile of players are linked to, whether it be Alvarez, whether it be Gordon, whether it be Isak, whether it be Ekitike, they all fit a profile of someone who is mobile with the potential to exit that space for other players to run into. And I think that's what I've been sold to Vert. I think the idea that he's going to be the dagger that you don't see coming because he's coming from that wider, deeper area, maybe tucked into the left, but then he enters the space that's left by other players by incredible movements.
Boss. And speaking of boss, I really like, obviously there's all kinds of stats flying around, all kinds of facts flying around, loads of content to consume about Vert and how good he is. I like this one, and it's been stuck in my head. I was going on about it to these when I was on the aisle on Saturday. So here it is again, in case you haven't heard it. Since making his debut for Leverkusen, Vert has provided 44 assists in the Bundesliga, ranking him 3rd of all players. But everyone else in the top 5 is at least 29 years old.
Wow.
And he's 22.
Yeah.
I love that. Because it's like, so he's been hitting some fucking levels over there, way beyond his years. And now he gets to work with Slot, who'll adapt him, who'll work with him, who'll train him, make him even better potentially. And it's like...
And how far did that go back?
Since making his debut, so whenever that was, I'm not sure, is it 3 years or
so something? There's a huge chunk of change there where he was out with like medial ligament injury for the best part of a year, and by all accounts, going back to the question marks from opposing fans over whether he's robust enough, apparently he came back a better player. He came back stronger.
Someone's saying fitter. Be careful about it's the Germany, but I get that, but it's still like, if you look at the name, like, you know, Thomas Muller, etc., he's alongside these type of names, and it's like, well, you know what I mean? That it's decent company, like
100%. And by the way,
where did
City buy De Bruyne from? They bought him from Wolfsburg. You know what I mean? So, that the German league is probably, it's well known as the league that's probably closest in terms of its physicality and pace to the English Premier League.
Just loads of stuff that makes it sound boss, because, why not? The 10th footballer to move for a 9-figure fee. Liverpool already have as well the world's second most expensive goalie in Alisson, the third most expensive centre-back in Virgil. The most expensive centre-back remains Harry Maguire.
And who's the most expensive goalie, by the way? Kepa.
I know.
You know what I mean? It's so, your margins there, they're so small, aren't they? Liverpool do that. When the Liverpool spend the big money, by and large, they get it right.
And the BBC is still saying as well, like, if you look at it in terms of initial fees, then the British record is still actually Enzo Fernandez, because he was 107 million as an initial fee, because it's up to 116 with Vert, isn't it? Caicedo as well, they paid 100 million, which could rise to 115, and Vert's initial fee is exactly half the world record, which remains £200 million for PSG when they bought Neymar in 2017. Yeah. I thought we'd have a little look as well at sort of, some of the big players, when we've gone to town on it, if you like, and bought big players in the past, if you like. So the 15th or the 15 top big buys for Liverpool. Vert's now at the top, obviously, because it's a club record. Then Nunes up to 85 million. God knows where we're at with that, and whether we'll ever even find out. But yeah, so Nunes 85 million didn't really just.
He falls into the other. When I say nearly always get it right.
Yeah. Van Dijk absolutely smashed it, 75 million, no doubt about that. Alisson 65 or thereabouts, again smashed that. Szoboszlai was 60. Naby Keita 52. He's definitely in the flop category.
He is because of how it worked out, but he was a good player, Keita. It just didn't work for him, did it? He couldn't get a run beyond his injuries, and then he had a few moments where he could have made better choices, like in the European Cup final when he blams one over. Yeah. But there's no doubt that the lad had talent, but he was a player who wasn't robust enough.
Didn't he get injured once, because he of a cushion on the plane or something?
Honestly, it reminded me
his neck was in the wrong position.
What was that goalie we had? He dropped an iron. Stensgaard dropped an iron board on himself or something.
But when you look at this list as well, I poked the bear on Twitter. I knew what I was doing. When I said I hope this Verts transfer is all right with the lads that wanted people to protest in a season we won the league about transfers last season.
It's not like you, that mate.
I know, yeah. But I did it for a reason, and that reason was it was incredibly annoying to see that every week. It was incredibly annoying to literally take abuse for putting a league table on Twitter and saying up the Reds or something. It's like, fuck off. And you know what I mean? And the constant on, and it's like, sorry lads, you don't take the temperature of the fan base, and the temperature of the fan base isn't let's go out and protest because you want more transfers. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, what I was going to say was, when you start looking at this as well, we have spent some money here, like Diaz up to 50, Jota up to 45, Gakpo 44, Salah 44 or thereabouts, Fabinho 43, Kanate 36, Andy Carroll 35.
Yeah, that was a wild day.
Yeah, Oxlade-Chamberlain 35, and the 15th of the 15th is Alexis McAllister 35.
Alexis McAllister.
The bargain, that
what
is.
We got him and Gravenberch for. Did you say Gravenberch then?
He's not in this list, no.
Because he might be cheaper.
Top 15.
But so McAllister and Gravenberch, you're probably talking less than 70 million that we paid for them. And you compare that with their equivalents at Chelsea, Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo. And so you're talking about 250 million for their combined transfer fee. And which which players ended up on top. I know which ones I'd rather have.
Exactly. I mean, there's some stuff that I had on the agenda about sort of, do we have to at some point start acknowledging that a decent job's being done here? Do you know what I mean? because like we're all crying like you haven't bought enough players, the squad's not strong enough. Then we win the league, and then by keeping our powers dry, we've now been able to go out and buy a player that everyone wanted, that looks to be an absolute world superstar. We've got 2 new fullbacks. It doesn't look like we've finished yet as well. I think you've got to start saying Richard Hughes has done all right here, because he also got the manager.
Yeah, definitely. Pound for pound, when you're looking at what's been spent over the past 10 years, Liverpool have been the most effective team in the transfer market globally, you'd have to say. But they might not have been the biggest spenders, and sometimes they've also been competing against clubs who are going to pay a great deal more to prospective players. Plus, they're also not in London, where a lot of foreign players are attracted to that lifestyle. Yeah. So considering what they're up against, I think Liverpool have been far more effective. And it was one of the things about when we found out that Jürgen was going, the fact that immediately it came out that we were bringing back the Brains Trust made me feel a lot better about the situation. Yeah, I was going to miss Jürgen, still do. Love the fella, what a job he did. He's the modern day Shankly who's built this house. But the job that those lads did, and the drop off as well when they disappeared, I think was certainly more hit and miss, wasn't it? So you only have to look at what they've done. The business has done when bringing in the manager. I mean, nobody, because it's the same fellas who were doing it, but the same analysis on the recruiting the players that they did recruit the manager. Nobody was bandying around Slot's name beforehand, and even when he was announced, there was a lot of like about it.
Yeah, it was. But the pieces that have been out there now about Hughes, talk about that. Amarim was on a short list, Valverde, Spalletti were on short lists, but when they looked at, they done the data, as you say, it was Slot that came out top of most of these data metrics that they measured it all by, and so they went and got him. And Spurs had already had the sniff and not being able to prize him away from Feyenoord. He's gone out there, got the deal done. As you say, lots of people unconvinced, including me. You know what I mean? I said on here, remember after that first interview, I was just like, I'm just not feeling it. You know what I mean? I just didn't think it was that convincing. Sorry, Anna. Turns out you were a boss, mate.
I think as well. Obviously, there's been a fair old brigade, particularly on the internet, who are in the FSG out. They take that view. But whether you're in that group or not, you can't argue with the job that the people that FSG have employed have done with the funds that they've been given. You know what I mean? So, and that's why what you talked before about, at the start of the show, do you feel happy? Do you feel content? And I do, because no matter what's going on in the transfer window, I trust the lads who are making these decisions in the Brains Trust that they're going to get it right more times than anybody else. Yeah, they're going to be prone to the odd hiccup, but I think more times than anybody else, it's proven they're going to get it right. They're making the right decisions, and sometimes if that means that they just hold back because they don't think the right player is available, I'm fine with that.
You think about when he first, because we're coming up, I think it's a week or so short of officially anyway, when Hughes was put into position. And you think about sort of what he was walking into then, like Klopp walking away. There was all the shit show over Zubimendi and him changing his mind about wanting to leave Spain and all that kind of stuff. Obviously the issues with the 3 top stars and the contracts. So, there was loads of stuff there, wasn't there?
Loads of pressure. A weaker character would have felt the need then to go and get someone in the market. But we didn't. Apart from Chiesa, we didn't. I mean, that was for Hughes and Slot to not bring in anyone. I mean, yeah, it was backing the lads that were there. But for them, it was putting them, particularly Hughes, was putting himself in the firing line. He's always making the step up from Bournemouth. So some of the fan base are anyway going to be a little bit unconvinced at that point. Now, I think you'd struggle to find anyone who's doubting his capabilities. There
was some good stuff in it, in a piece by Lewis Steele. So he put some stuff about one representative talking about agent, by the way, talking about Richard Hughes said he's stubborn, he's cold as ice, and he tends to get what he wants. Rob Janssen, the agent of Slot's coach Heitinger, he also said one thing Richard Hughes doesn't have is any sense of empathy. Zero. He's a robot. There's zero feelings in him.
He looks like a baddie, doesn't he? He looks like a baddie. He looks brilliant. He's well groomed. He could be in the mafia. You know what I mean? He is very well groomed. He always looks boss in his suits, all that type of stuff. But he is cold. He is calculated, and he is quite the negotiator.
Clearly, yeah. Well, listen, we've done the free show. That's your free hour-long show. If you enjoyed the chat and you want to hear more, we've got more footy stuff to talk about, and we might even go into a bit of a mad tangent and talk about Stu Wright's theories around aliens and
brilliant. Thanks, mate.
He's banging into it, so I thought, we might just do it. But we've got loads more footy to talk about as well, to be honest. We're going to talk about Kirkhez. We haven't talked about Kirkhez. We're going to talk about Kwanzaa. We haven't talked about Kwanzaa. We're going to talk about the fixtures. We haven't talked about the fixtures. So yeah, loads of stuff that we could potentially get stuck into in the next show. As ever, if you fancy it this week and you want to come over and watch it, just go over to our Patreon and have a go there. And if you have a go, it's £4 a month is the minimum sign up, and then you get access to all the Patreon shows we've ever done as well. So loads of stuff to get stuck into. So yeah, if you fancy it, come over and join us over there. If you don't, no worries. We'll be back, or certainly I'll be back in position next week for another free show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Nice one to Stu for stepping in. Great performance, I think it has to be said. And lots of love, by the way, in the comments for you as well.
That's nice.
So yeah, nice one. See you next week on The Late Challenge.